that welcome to the Pharma Digital Conclave. This is a knowledge series on pharmaceuticals, which we're trying to look at, and this is going to be monthly. And this is in as a joint initiative, thanks to our dear friend, Mr. Tushar Jani of Cargo Service Center. So we're doing it jointly with him. So we're going to come to you monthly and discuss the knowledge aspect about the pharma through the Pharma Digital Conclave. So that's something which is going to be a learning and how this particular industry in this particular sector could become the number one in the world. That's what we're trying to hope. So really, the discussion of this is basically discuss the full potential to become a global pharmacy. That's what we want India to be. The topic today for our discussion is cold chain infrastructure world class to store and transport pharma in India? So that's a very crucial thing which we need to look at and understand this very carefully. This actually will have a long-term impact on the industry, and we will deep dive into the same to understand what it is. For that, we have a panel of experts with us today, which I will introduce you. You can see all the three panelists sitting over there in front of you. One is Mr. Lakkaraju, we have Mrs. Gurung, and Mr. Jani, of course. So before I ask them, I will like to give my 2 minutes bits before I kind of say something. I just want to share with you that since the past 50 years, the India pharmaceutical firms have been successful not only in meeting the domestic needs, but also achieving a leading position in the global pharmaceutical landscape. Over the last 50 years, in terms of both meeting the domestic needs, again, this is something which is important. The pharmaceuticals have done very well. And to give you some statistics and figures, in 1969, the Indian pharmaceutical had a 5% share of the market in compared to the globe. While globe stood at 95%, India was 5%. In 2020, this has reversed completely. India pharmaceutical stands at almost 85%, while the globe is down to 15%. And that's all kudos to all of you, everybody in this sector who's done remarkably well. India pharmaceutical industry apprises of becoming the world's largest supplier of drugs by 2030 and aims to increase the industry revenue to US dollars between 120 to 130 billion from the currently we stand at 41 billion. So if we look at going to 130, we're looking at increasing at a compounded annual growth rate of about a CRG about 11 to 12%, which is big in today's economy and the way the world is. India is among the top 5 drug exporters to the USA. It exported pharma worth US dollars 5.82 billion in the year 1918-19. Okay, that's the figure we have, but that's what it is at the moment. And according to the study by GSI India, a global supply chain standard organization, the best in the class pharma companies, pharmaceutical globals, had inventory period of 64 days only, while Indian companies, their counterparts over here in India, had inventory of 98 days, which I thought is something which is extraordinary, something which we should actually leverage on. So I won't give you any more comments, and I think I'm going to introduce my panelists today to you so you all understand and know, and then we'll hear them rather than hear me. My first panelist, which I'd like to introduce, is Mr. Satish Lakkaraju. Sir, if you could just wave out so that people, thank you very much. He's the Senior VP and of Global Freight Air, heading of pharmaceuticals with VWiz. He is an alumni of the prestigious SKM Nakri and Monji Institute of Management Studies. Satish started his professional journey in the industry about 30 years ago with TNT Skypack. He's a strong sales professional, skilled in negotiation, import and export organization management, air and ocean freight, custom clearance, and sales and marketing. He has been the advisor for the FTCCI for the past 4 years and is currently the board member of ACFI and chairman of the event task pillar. Welcome, Satish. It's a pleasure to have you over here. My next panelist I would like to go is to Rashmi Gurung. She's the manager, climate control product in Qatar Airways. Rashmi is globally responsible for the QR pharma products in Qatar Airways cargo for the last 7 years. At Qatar, Rashmi is part of the wider cargo team of product specialists involved in producing and distribution and development, quality management, training, commercial strategy, operational strategy, and customer relationship. She she's a very keen proponent of collaborative partnership to enhance co-working and improve industry standards in a rapidly evolving global environment. She has been over 2 decades of experience in the cargo sector. Rashmi, seeing you, it doesn't look that much, but welcome. It's pleasure to have you over here. Thank you. And of course, our dear friend, Mr. Tushar Jani, Group Chairman, Cargo Service Sector and SCA Group of Companies. And let me put it this way, he's a well-known figure. I think all of us in the industry should know him well. If we don't, maybe we are in the wrong industry. Sorry, but that's my particular take on it. His journey in the logistic industry began about 40 years ago and has successfully founded and led many companies in various areas of the logistic and supply chain sector, namely custom house clearance, transportation, freight forwarding, aviation, warehousing, couriers, express couriers, 3PL, 4PL logistics, supply chain, IT services, and NVOCC services. Tushar, I'd like to know from you, is there anything left in this? I think you've done everything all. Tushar is a co-founder and former chairman of Blue Dart Express, the premium international and domestic courier company, and co-founder and chairman of the Blue Dart Aviation Limited, the first private carrier in India. Welcome, Tusharji. It's a pleasure to have you here. Okay, friends, now we really get into, we must hear from the experts what they have to really talk about. And I'm just repeating it, is the cold chain infrastructure world-class to store and transport pharma in India? We really need to put India right on the top. That's the aim of not only our Prime Minister, the country, but all of us. That's what we all need to achieve. So I will go with the opening remarks. I would like to ask ladies first. So if you don't mind, I go with Rashmi first. Rashmi, I'm going to come to you first. Do you think that India has a world-class cold chain infrastructure in store to handle the distribution of pharma? This is the same question. I'm going to come to all three of you, but briefly, Rashmi, if you can say a few lines on this, that'll be wonderful before I go on to Mr. Satish.
Thank you, SanJeet, and thank you, co-panelists. I've got, really, I'd say nothing less than luminaries with Satish and Tushar Bhai. Really happy to be here to share this Friday morning with you. As you said in your introduction itself, India is the pharmacy of the world today. We are leading not just in generics, but we've got some of the largest vaccine manufacturing. And we also discussed that it is the new upcoming, industry of medical devices, which will also bring India to the top in the next 2 decades. Can we do more in terms of infrastructure? Do we have the right infrastructure? We have some bright spots. We know that. There has been investments in not just airports, but even, the freight forwarding and the general distribution over the last 1 to 2 decades. We've got some extremely good world-class infrastructure in some of the airports, but is that enough for the size of what India is capable of? Maybe not. More needs to be done. There are areas that need to be developed, airports, notably, some of the airports, to avoid the kind of bottlenecks we may have, relying on 2 or 3 airports, for example, for exports. And maybe more in terms of multimodal transportation, more players could come in. There's room for growth, and there's certainly room for development. And I'm sure we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thanks a lot. And I'm going to come to Satish. Satish, I'm going to repeat the question to you. Do you think India has a world-class cold chain infrastructure to store, handle, and distribute the pharma? You being an expert on it, let's say, are we ready for it, or more needs to be done? A quick note from you.
Thank you, SanJeet, and pleasure to be on the webinar. Thanks to Tushar for having invited me on this. But I think this is a subject which has been very close to my heart for many years, for multiple reasons that I've been involved with it. And I have traveled across many countries, and can tell you that India is doing far better than many countries as far as the infrastructure is concerned. Indian airports have developed something known as the pharma zones, which are not very common to be seen in other parts of the world. The terminal operators themselves have invested in huge infrastructure. The understanding of the pharma is far superior with most of the airports, and more is happening. Currently, it's centric to airports like Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore predominantly. But I would guess that in the days to come, airports like Ahmedabad and Goa and rest of them would also really be in terms of being world class in any way. So those are my first initial comments, Sanjit.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you very much. And Tusharji, back to you now. Let's hear from your hat what you think about it. Where are we at the moment? You're muted, Tusharji. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Am I okay now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. India has always shown, you've seen in mobile technology, we just jump onto the 5G now. And that's what's going to happen here. I think we're going to jump. The beginning has been done. And as Satish said, it started at the airport, few locations. It's going to get spread now in the interior. And very soon you will see a reliable cold chain coming out of India. India will lead the way. Not only that, India will set up a corridor to the destination market, the complete cold chain. So some of us would now venture into the other part of the world and create the infrastructure from right away from India till the door of our customer's customer. And I think that's coming in soon. So you will have dedicated air connectivity, dedicated trucking, dedicated distribution, and you will see the big scale coming up, I believe, in next 1 or 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Tusharji. I think we'll go inside into details, and then I think a lot of more things will come out. So, Satish, I'm going to come to you first. I think that's the best thing to do. Really, and you needed to be very candid about it. How would you rate India's infrastructure for handling the cold chain shipment and multimodal transport today? And what do you think? Is it good enough, or is there a lot of room for improvement for future? Because keeping in mind, we need to be number one.
On a scale of 10 to 8, if I have to put it, I would definitely put that India is at an 8 as far as pharmaceutical understanding is concerned, and infrastructure is concerned. Also, I would rate it as 8, to be very clear. There are some areas of improvement in certain airports, but those are not to do with the terminal, but those are due to with the approach to the airports. But if you look at the 4 airports clearly, some airports are in a larger advantage because they started with a greenfield airport, but some airports are constrained because of they being the brownfield airports. So any airport that's going to come up in the future will be lucky to put the infrastructure from day one. We are having the new airports that are scheduled to happen, and I see already India airports are taking the infrastructure as a priority. So that is my take clearly. Skilled manpower is the other area, which the rating also is a little lower, but I think that's also improving. Sanjit.
But Sati, sorry, I need you to little expand on that. See, you mentioned it very, very quickly and very well that in terms of kind of infrastructure you briefly mentioned about roads and things of that kind. Airports, you said green, they have an advantage about it. People, manpower, and all that. But can you explore what is it that we really require, which according to you, which will really take us up there?
So to be more specific, what happens in comparison to India to other airports is if you go today to a New York airport or EWR or Chicago or any of where most of our cargo goes, if there is cargo beyond a certain capacity, then or 2 aircrafts full of cargo, they're not able to accommodate it, and cargo will have to be left in non-temperature zones. Whereas if you look at India, even a 15 to 25 in a Mumbai airport, I would presume it will be 9,000 square meters of area in a CRT, and in a 2 to 8, we will look at anywhere between 6 to 700 square meters of space. So what I basically trying to classify is that if you look at the cold chain, 15 to 25 is the majority of the cargo that is transported clearly. Then the other range is 2 to 8. And 2 to 8 goes through active and passive containers. So they are more well protected in terms of the transportation. Whereas 15 to 25 goes more in terms of not using active or passive, but white blanket, thermal blankets, and other modes of transportation. Those need infrastructure at the terminal, also when they need it on the tarmac, which I mean is that cool dollies need to be there. The awareness of cool dollies in India has really increased. It started with, say, a few airports like Delhi, Chelabi Terminal, and say Bombay also got it. Hyderabad has it. Bangalore has been fortunate because the weather is not so hostile in terms of it being 35 or 40 degrees. But Rashmi's hometown has always been a pleasure to be there at 15 to 25. And surprisingly, most of your excursions happen at that point of time, whether it is in transit or rest of them. I think India has addressed those issues brilliantly. When you get today complaints from customers, it is not that it happened in India. Earlier, majority of the time, we would always get worried and we would never trust Indian airports. But today, you can proudly tell that the Indian airports have really everything possible to support the industry, and which is why you're seeing the growth happening, and people are not complaining about it. I think it's more in the transshipments that we see. And I may not be wrong because Middle East airports have managed it also quite well. Rashmi comes from an airport where I've been there personally, and I know they manage it extremely well. But there are other airports which have not managed it so well. And I'm telling you this because I have traveled to all the airports which Pharma is in. The time it takes to offload to go to the terminal and back to reload, in some airports it's as high as 40 minutes. Whereas in Indian airports, that duration has generally been shortened because the aircraft is parked right before the terminal. In the freighters and in the non-freighters also, it's managed well. Indian customers also are mindful of transporting Pharma during on a night flight. The requests come in. So I think awareness-wise, India is far ahead in terms of being mindful. Whereas other countries with new airlines coming in, their readiness is still not there. And the last thing I can tell you is that the airlines which have their due certifications like CIV Pharma, DDP, all this was not so much even with Indian terminals. But today, if you look at Mumbai airport as a classic case, CIV Pharma certified, which is a good thing. Most of the airports in India are GDP certified, clearly. I think the awareness is increasing. Indian airports are having sufficient space not to leave the cargo in non-temp zones. So that gives you a fair bit of what India has been doing in terms of infrastructure, people, operation SOPs, multiple things. And I think Rashmi will then probably tell her.
No, I totally take your point on that. Rashmi will come to a little later on the aviation, but first I want to go to Tusharji. Mr. Tushar, I really want to ask you, well, if I can say this safely, Satish is being a little diplomatic about it, but I would ask you hardcore. What are the pain points which are faced by the industry stakeholders today? What if you can really highlight them? Because we really need to understand them and then go find a solution for that.
I think the most important, we have handled the infrastructure up to the extent. Like say Mumbai airport has throughput capacity of 14,000 tons per month. And we're just doing about 3,500 to 4,000 tons a month. So if you add, we've got next 10 years capacity today. But what is, I think the education is first part as a community, not individual. So as a community together, we need to educate to understand what we need each other. So there is the whole data transmission, which needs to come in time in a right format, so it can help the process to move faster. So that is one area. Secondly, unified platform is not there on information. Just to give you an example, we have this Turant app, and it just came out of one of the forwarder had an issue, and he woke me up at 2:00 midnight and said, "Hey, listen, my cargo is not going." And suddenly we found that forwarder men was missing to give the cargo ready. So I said, why should we have that? So we have this Turant app, which is on your mobile. You type the airway number and you know everything about it. Now, that's not enough. It's not only the terminal. I think it should be on the truck. It should be on the tarmac, what Satish said, and it should have the information all the way. So we now want to develop what we call it the communication tower to get that information. So most of the information we have, and what we expect the community to come forward and give us that information so we can make it available to everyone. Understand, air cargo is a relay race and everybody works in a silos. Now, pharma is one community, commodity, which can come together as a potential. And if we can showcase that in a pharma as a community, be it training, be it information, be it a platform, be it the movement of goods in terms of the need base, in terms of the capacity when we need it, what time in the air, the cold temperature handling, because everybody knows tarmac is a black hole. Because when the cargo goes on tarmac, people may not know, and which we need to fill that up. If we do it all together as a community, I think so the world cannot beat. Nobody in the world can beat India. We have a fantastic manufacturing pharma, trust me. Our research scientists are doing in terms of molecule, in terms of developing drugs, in terms of that delivery given to it. We've seen what has happened in the vaccine. They can make the best drugs. And this is only the pharma. We haven't touched yet the bioscience. Once we touch bioscience, we will know what, we can do. So I think so if we collectively, and one of my requests, SanJeet, we are doing this together, is to give knowledge to everyone and bring fraternity together. That's our aim. And, we use your publication to reach to the people that we need to come together. And of course, Rashmi and various other carriers needs to come to, as a together.
No, thank you very much, Tusharji. I totally agree with you. And as I said, kudos to you and your thinking and getting the industry and increasing the knowledge. I think that's the big part, because everybody can do others. I think that's something which is phenomenal. But now I'm going to come to you, Rashmi. And in fact, something which you heard about Turant, about infrastructure, towers and stuff like that. But more than anything else, I really want to understand from you, how crucial is the role of technology in maintaining the integrity of temperature sensitive shipments, as we call, during the transportations, the whole episode? How important is that, and how important is technology playing the part now?
Thanks, SanJeet. I think you've touched if not, the most important subject in today. I mean, we've got manufacturing, we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about, upskilling, resource, and all of that. India, not just being the pharmacy of the world, we are also the backbone of the world in terms of IT and technology. And, I'm part personally of many different associations, like this one. And we've been the recent, discussions that have been leading every forum, every, conference, or people coming together, communities and associations, is apart from sustainability, which is a big topic, digitalization. There's not enough can be said about digitalization. I think we as a cargo industry have a lot to achieve, and we have the willingness, we have the resource, we have the enterprise, and we also have all the bright minds who can do this. I mean, we've gone into, as Tushar Bhai said, we've got into 5G, we've got apps that we can upgrade to this. What everybody here is looking for is visibility. It is the most important thing today. And visibility not in just terms of location or where is your shipment at this time of, day, but also in terms of temperature monitoring, because it has a lot of benefits overall for bringing about a lot of efficiencies in what we are doing with temperature monitoring, digitalization. There are a lot of companies now offering devices which not just have GPS tracking, but also, real-time temperature monitoring, location tracking. You could have shock monitoring, humidity monitoring, all of that. But it is needed to be integrated, unified, as Tushar Bhai said, in a way that is useful to the end user rather than silos. Today we are in silos. Somebody is capturing data, has it somewhere, but is that end to end? From the time it leaves a manufacturer until the time it arrives at a patient, how as we as an industry can come together and bring that unification around. And some of the benefits, as we can say, is that with this kind of digitalization, with visibility, monitoring in temperature and all that, not just do we bring efficiency, we bring in better product efficacy and integrity, because we can attack things in transit or on point when it's needed to, without having to do things after trying to figure out why things went wrong, how can we correct it. And they have products sitting in quarantine. And then also I believe that another important subject is lane validation. It's another a thing that a lot of customers talk about: lane risk assessment, lane validation, with the monitoring, visibility of what's happening on different lanes. Shippers, us, even as airlines, freight forwarding partners like Satish, partners like Tushar Bhai, then we can come together and say, hey, this lane works better. Why is it working better? What can we do to make something else, come up to that standard? So there are a lot of benefits from this. And I think that's the direction that we all need to head to now.
Okay, Rashmi, one point. Do you think India is taking a lead in this and will take the lead in this? Just one like
India always takes the lead. I'd love to say it is, it is, we are where we are because of what we have done. There's no other reason. You started, SanJeet, saying that in 1969 where we were and where we are today. I mean, that cannot be without not just enterprise, investment, infrastructure upgrades, upskilling of resource, and also technology. We've done a lot. And India will continue to take the lead because we're always proud to do what we're doing. And I think all of us want to come together genuinely, as Tushar Bhai said, as a community. It's not about commercially promoting one product or the other, but we want to do something together for the industry. We want India to shine, and India will lead. And I think we have the minds to do it.
Wonderful. I could agree with you more. As Satish, staying on the same topic, I'm talking to you. I'd really like to know what do you think? What are the recent, if you can actually throw more light on it, what are the recent advancements and investments done by the private sector in improving this whole cold chain infrastructure, especially for pharmaceuticals? I'm sticking to pharmaceuticals only. So what is, if you can throw some more light on it, since you're on the topic, that'll be wonderful.
Good. So to continue from where Rashmi left, we are a tech company ourselves. Okay, so when compared to a traditional freight forwarder, and we realized that the tech component is what was missing in the whole thing. And she rightly said that visibility, not only in terms of temperature, shock, in terms of thing, but IoT is one which has been one of the most advanced things that came in. Because earlier, Rashmi would recollect and Tushar Bhai would recollect that data loggers were used where after the incident happened, you would use the data to see what went wrong. But with the current technology that is in place, what would happen is if the cargo is lying on the tarmac for say 2-3 hours more than what it should be lying, it will send you signals to tell you that, boss, this cargo is lying there. Why can't you immediately react? So one is from a very reactive situation. Technology is going to help you to be proactive in the whole approach, and then someone can react. So this is one part of it. One of the painful areas that pharma customers and forwarders and multiple agency is CAPA, Corrective and Preventive Action Report, which is still manual today. You take data from multiple sources and then you try and accumulate and do an analysis. But I think that is something which we are looking at as an organization as well as industry players, where you can automate the whole process. Like what Tushar said, he's got his Turant app. If I can integrate his data with that of my data plus that of Rashmi's data and the destination airport together, then you are stimulating a larger, faster report because everything is online then. And then the data logger could still be the last bit of it. So on the technology front, what you're going to anticipate and see is behind the screen, a lot of work is happening. And India has always been having the advantage of first mover advantage because the tech companies are here. But even global companies are coming up with data which is live. In the past, even in ocean side, we never used to get data. But today in the ocean side, you still get data which is live. Yesterday in ACFI event, we were discussing the same subject with one of the carriers who said that there is an option where even data can be transmitted from the middle of the sky, not constantly, but at regular intervals or in some intervals, so that customers get more visibility. So I think on the tech side, lot is going to happen. Control towers are going to be established both for road trucking as well as it, because Indian trucks earlier were not everywhere GPS enabled. But today, if you look at any truck that is there for pharma, there is a larger bit of tech that is being used clearly. So I would say that there is a lot more that can be done, but at least the journey is started in terms of looking at tech more seriously. And tech is not now, something which is not affordable. I think the mindset of the customers in the pharma also has to drastically change. The current challenge is there are solutions which come at a certain price, and the certain price will reduce the loss to a substantial extent. But rather, it is sometimes penny wise, pound foolish that everything revolves around on a concept of saying who's your L1 service provider. I think that is a mindset which has to go away because tech doesn't come cheap. Tushar Bhai mentioned clearly about skill set. And educational institutions don't come cheap on the tech side. If someone has to be in one of the premium institute, it comes at a high price. And then once you have to hire him, he comes at a cost. And then technology comes at also at a price, because if you are buying an iPhone today, it comes at a certain price and comes with a certain benefits. I think so. That is to sum up, SanJeet, is that lot can be done. Mindset has to change.
Satish, I think you hit on a very important point when you say that technology doesn't come cheap. But what is your assessment in India? What would you say? 60%, 80% of people are using technology, or is it far less? What percentage would be there? Just to get an idea.
If you ask me, it's less than 20%.
Less than 20%.
Undoubtedly, because the tech that is available, unless it is mandated by the end customer, saying, look, you put a data logger and put your devices, they don't put it. And I can be more candid in terms of saying is that people don't go through Tushar's terminal because they really mean that it is. Because someone is mandating that you have to maintain a temperature. You have to care for your patient end of the day and for your end customer to really give service. I'm not into this vertical or this because I'm here to do a certain thing. But I think the way I started pharma was saying is how can you save 1 or 2 more lives by getting that medicine transported more efficiently. That should be your purpose, rather saying this vertical is to kill the medicine and make money. If that is the attitude, then you are not hitting it. So
you have to live with the conscience. I agree with you. I think that's perfectly very well said. Tusharji, I'm coming to you now back again, but and I want to talk to you about something before we started. We were discussing something about exports to Europe and all that. So I want to ask you something. Looking at the pharma being the main exports to Europe and USA, how can India develop a lane between India, Europe, and the USA? And what kind of percentages are we? If you can throw some light on that, that'd be wonderful.
I believe 75% of generic drugs today goes to Europe and US. And out of that 75%, 60% of that goes to US and 40% goes to Europe. And I think that's very critical. If you must have been in in the newspaper, all our manufacturer has to get the FDA approval from the US drug administrator. And you'll be surprised, the US drug administrator are in India. They go to these factories in a plain clothes, they go in an auto rickshaw, right? They go unannounced for the inspection. And our drug manufacturers have done well, okay, barring one or two incidents if you look at it. But our manufacturing industries have done fantastic. If you go today into the pharmacy and you see on the shelf, you will find so many Indian drugs in the generic. I think what is key, which it provides us, is that it will give us ultimately the pharma e-commerce out of India. And we and our company, we have titled as P-commerce. So what we want to develop our capability at ultimate vision in terms of the percentage, that generic drug India would be 20 to 40% of the world. You'll be surprised 31% of the depression drug of United States comes from India. Imagine what role we're playing now into that market, into the health industry. Now, if we can develop that capability of giving e-commerce, pharma e-commerce on a generic drug where the back office is in India and delivered to the patient in the United States in 30 minutes in that zip code. And that's where the India will come onto the front and people will recognize. I'm telling you, the other aspect of what we are talking here is the domestic industry is going to get so much benefit, what we are now doing here. The domestic pharma industry is way behind what we are talking here. And that's the another opportunity which will come for all of us. It will go through the chain. So in terms of I think we have to develop our skill as a product delivery to Europe and US in a most controlled manner, where, like what Satish was saying, and I entirely agree with him, if there is information available that temperature excession has happened there, we must sit down and do that on a proactively rather than doing it after, and start blocking it, right? Number one. Number two, we need to have the infrastructure controlled by us on the destination, which is our own warehouses, our own trucking. Imagine there are 20 large manufacturers out of India. If I put all 20 large manufacturers in one distribution center in Europe, you will need 1 million square feet warehouse to do that, and the cost will come down, delivery will be faster, Indian product will be delivered. And like what Satish says is absolutely right. In our company, we always say what is inside the box. Our people have been trained. My worker has been trained now. This drug goes for depression. This is for diabetes. This is, just to give a small example. If you have the vaccine, if you throw it heavily onto the floor, it gets freezed. Okay, very simple knowledge, but that helps. And that's why a company like us have a pharmacist on 24-hour basis. So I think our product knowledge has to go beyond. We have to control not only out of factory, but factory to terminal to inside the aircraft, from aircraft on the other side, and control the full chain. That's the time and investment to be made by the Indian entity service provider to give the good, reliable pharma to the world. And that's what I'm saying. And the indication is, if we have got 75% going to Europe and US, that direction we should head.
But I want to ask you something. There's something which is, you said 75% if it's heading to America and Europe, but you said 31% of mental health medicine comes from India. Are they two not different things?
No, it is part of it. What I'm saying, United States, when they consume the anti-depression drug, 31% has been supplied by India.
My God, that's a big number. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to come to you, Rashmi. Now, we're talking about the whole thing about cold chain shipment and everything, and you talked about temperature and all that. Can you tell us what are the challenges you really, and I would like you to be candid about it, what are the challenges of this shipment of landing and off landing at terminals, and when you put them on the aircraft and stuff like that, not only in India, whatever, abroad also. So what really are your issues?
I think that's a good question. I think Satish touched on this in one of the previous questions. the biggest thing is the uncontrolled tarmac time in many airports, right? So India, to a great extent, have managed to control it, but we know that the biggest challenge or the biggest risk for any healthcare product, which is temperature sensitive particularly, or maybe even light sensitive or any of those things, is uncontrolled tarmac time. Today we have many important airports around the world which are which are extremely large airports, long distances from warehouses to the airside. Of course, there are freighter operators which are better placed, where you have freighter parking maybe near the airport, but a lot of shipments which are traveling across the world are also traveling on passenger services. And sometimes, there's one airport in the world where it's 14 kilometers distance from a warehouse up to the parking bay of the aircraft. And then they're speed controlled. The vehicles on the airside are speed controlled. You can only take so much at a time. So we are talking about many hours of tarmac time where it's very difficult to control. So unloading is the same thing. Is if it's going to take you 3 hours to 4 hours to tow a unit that's arrived on an aircraft in the peak of summer, maybe an afternoon arrival, you can't always control all the schedules, right? You do have those schedules. You need the capacity into those airports, out of those airports. This is a challenge. And as Satish touched up, that there are some airports investing in pool dollies or even reefer trucks, as we have. A lot more equipment is required, and these are not expensive. These are not cheap. A lot of this equipment is extremely expensive. Maintaining them also can be expensive. So that is a challenge. And then I'll just circle back to a couple of other points touched upon.
Before you go there, Rashmi, when you say these are expensive products, these are to be done by the airline, or is it the airport, or is it who's going to keep this?
I would say, if the wider industry has to benefit, it needs to come from the airport, but very often it could come from the ramp handling as well, right? The agents who are handling the ramp would need to invest in the equipment. So it could be in collaboration with the airport, because it is expensive, and also the movement of these vehicles are sometimes restricted, because you can't have 50 cool dollies going to a freighter or a wide-body passenger aircraft. So airports also need to participate in easing, around the movement of these vehicles, how they operate around the aircraft. So usually it is ramp handling.
Would airlines also like to participate in this? Because you have your containers all over the world like there. So why not look into this?
Airlines do, and a lot of airlines Satish touched upon, especially in the Middle East, because we don't have a choice. For us, it's not even an option. Is if customers have to use us, then they want to see how we secure on the tarmac, because we do have some brutal summers. But having said that, there are brutal winters in many parts of the world. So airlines also do participate. It's not a lot of airlines have come forward. They're doing a protection on the ramp. So I would say that it depends on the location, the situation. So it could be the airline of interest who's transporting that. It could be the airport who wants to develop. It could be the ramp handling. It has to be collaborative. At the end of the day, everybody has to come together and then work to what is the best solution we can provide to the industry as a whole, rather than looking at my business or somebody else's business. How do you protect that? So it has to be an industry collaborative effort for sure. And then, if you don't mind, I'll just touch back on the previous question very quickly on what Satish said, and Tushar Bhai also mentioned. You also talked about the challenges, right, into the Europe and US. I'll just go into that quickly. What we also seeking, a very pertinent point here, is in the Indian industry, be it investment in cool dollies, be it investment in anything else to grow the share of the pie. Can we get bigger? Yes, we can. We talked about that. Is that our pharmaceutical manufacturing and distribution more than manufacturing has to over time look to become more structural rather than ad hoc and transactional. Today we are a very ad hoc and transactional business. Investment will only come when there's forecast. when they structure, when people know what to expect, how much to expect, and then, you can chase your investment after that, be it technology, be it, placing cool dollies in airports, be it Tushar Bhai expanding the capacity in his terminal, be it Satish putting more trucks on the road, supporting with more trucks to support these manufacturers. We need to move away from the ad hoc. We need to move away from transactional. And then pharmaceutical manufacturers also need to come forward to support all of this that we are doing, to say, not penny wise, pound foolish. All this does cost money. And then, when you're giving business here a month and then next month it doesn't exist, then it becomes difficult for anyone to push that investment forward. So
Right.
it's a community thing. Thank you.
Back to community. I think that's what we need to go. Okay, I'm running short of time. We just got about 10 more minutes to go. So Satish, I'm going to come to you, and you mentioned something, and I'm going to ask you specifically on that. You did talk about skilled manpower. Now, I really want to understand and know from you. Do you think that the industry needs? You said you do a little bit skilled manpower. Most importantly, pharmaceuticals at the terminals to understand the requirement of the pharma shipment accordingly. I know Tusharji mentioned that he does have a pharmacist in this thing, but is this necessary for everybody, or what is your thought? And where is the skilled manpower coming in?
Good question. For a reason is that, let me give you all a little more insight, is that if you're a doctor, you study MBBS. If you're an engineer, you study an BTech or a BE. And if you're a chartered accountant. But for a logistician, historically, we do not have a degree that clearly said these are the things. Two is that even at the terminals, we don't have clear guidelines, even within our organization, that you have to hire a person. You look at his attitude and probably a few other things. He's got legs and hands, and you hire him. But when you're dealing with pharma, that's a challenge, because if he treats tires the same way he treats pharma, then there is a problem. So Tushar's point of saying having a person with the B pharmacy will help, because he knows what needs to be done, at least fundamentally, one part of it. So that is a good idea in terms of creating more employment, is that everyone handling in pharma can clearly hire B pharma, and there are institutions which are there. But that is not just sufficient, because the cold chain and airport operations need further more skill sets in terms of dangerous good handling under IATA, basic cargo sort of it, and then GDP. There are certain more qualifications which are required, and that is short-staffed clearly. Today, if I want to give you a little more insight, Rashmi will also say, many years ago, you never had so many active and passive operators in India. But today, all the world's top active passive operators want to be in India. And trust me, there is a shortage of people there, whether it is Envirotainer, whether it's C-Safe, whether it's Vacutech, whether it is Kaisel, whether it's Docash or rest of them, Softbox or other thing. You don't have sufficient people on the ground really on that part of it. Same with us today, you don't have so many people. So I hope that answers SanJeet your.
Yes, so you really need to spend a lot on manpower and education. I think that's going to be an important aspect going forward in the future. That's what we need to look at. Okay, since I'm running short time, Tusharji, I'm going to come to you now. Something which you really need to address in a different way. The industry is complaining of shortages of reefer. What do you call it? Reefer trucks, cycles required for manufacturing points and point delivery points. Those are cold storage thing. What are the initiatives? I know you're taking a lot of initiatives, but where are we going as far as the industry is concerned? You think we will run through this shortage problem, or this will continue for a long time?
Satish, I think so. Rashmi made a very good point in saying, ad hocism, if it goes, and even if we as a community can plan and be conscious about it, that these investments are highly capital intensive, then people, we are business people. Why we will not invest if we get return on our investment? What is happening today, if you take a cold truck today, it costs 40 to 50% higher than the normal truck, right? And you can't use it for the general cargo then. So what is happening? Somebody is making investment, and if the asset stands and doesn't get used, and suddenly by the end of the month, you will need hundreds of trucks because everybody is moving traffic at the end of the month or end of the quarter. Now, you'll be surprised, in the end of the quarter in my terminal, in one of the participants has put that question, suddenly we get so much cargo. So much cargo. Now, the terminal has a 4-wall. It can't expand overnight, right? So why can't people plan? And that's when the community come together. So there are enough trucks. If you use it in a proper manner, if we understand supply chain, we have to do it around the year. It will be good for the airline. And not only that, shipper will benefit. The airline and the other people would be able to give them a stable offering, around the year. So they can plan their business better. But unfortunately, this is the problem with the Indian manufacturing shipping fraternity. They will bring cargo only after 5 o'clock. For whatever reason, I don't know why. Okay? They'll bring cargo on the end of the month or end of the quarter. In terms of March, last 4 days, my boys have not slept for 4 nights continuously, right? And then people get agitated, said infrastructure is not there, but the infrastructure is only needed for 4 days. So I think that's one, just to give you one small example now. Today, we have gone and invested in a bigger X-ray machine in our terminal. The machine costs us 1 crore and 80 lakhs. 175 centimeter by 175 centimeter to bring the whole, what we are talking, the ULDs, which can carry up to 3,000 kilo, can be screened. Now, is industry ready to talk and plan that way? So my team is asking, sir, where is money? So I said, don't worry, just put it. Once people see, people will come and use it. I think how many people of us, like us, can take that stupid attitude, like what I'm taking, okay, put the money, it will come. So if we as a community, that's why I'm using word community. But see, there is one other thing in the community, SanJeet, is packaging. We use dry ice, which is criminal, right? You add weight, you add carbon dioxide in today's world of sustainability. Can't India produce an alternate to dry ice? I'm sure we can. We have scientists. So let's as a community work together and do it. Somebody has mentioned about package label trace and tech, which we can do. There are Indian technology available at the package label.
Tusharji, I'll come to that, but I'm going to take questions after this. I think you're a great optimist, and I love that kind of situation. And if I can safely say, planning and Indians, I don't know what kind of a relationship we have with them. Is not only in this field, I think in every field you've seen what happens. So I think it's a different kind of a relationship.
Only submission, you can't have jugaad in pharma.
Exactly, I agree with you. So that's something we have to get rid of. That's where education and planning will come in. Okay, we have a few questions, so I'm going to take on the questions. So I think that's the best thing to do. So Devika, why don't you ask the first question, whichever it is?
Sure. Just going on from what Mr. Jani just said, Hassan has asked a question on road transport, saying that what are the next steps of improvement when it comes to road transport for pharma? So would one of you like to highlight that, please?
You want me to take it? I can take it.
I think so. Satish should take that.
Okay, so to clearly tell you, there's a huge gap in the availability of trucks in the cold chain today. If I'm talking from a standpoint, not only from pharma, but in general, the reefer trucks requirement in the country, because you can't clearly say that the pharma requirement is X and Y, but if there is a demand for 70,000 trucks, we are at a 20,000 trucks level. Okay. So one, that is the gap. And then one needs to understand, if that is a great business case, why are people not investing? Or people who have investing are moving out of it. The only reason that is today there is not great amount of a difference between running a general transport versus a reefer truck. Whereas in the reefer truck business, the biggest challenge is return loads. You don't get return loads if you pick up a cargo from Hyderabad and bring it to Bombay. Load the pharma, you deposit it in a Mumbai airport, you can't take that truck with wine or food or fish into it. But there's no return pharma load. So you can use technology as one mode to see how you can manage return loads in the long run technically. And if that can be done, probably you can see more investment coming in. But currently the return on investment on reefer trucks to it is not an exciting situation. So that is the reason that you are seeing so many challenges currently.
Satish, can I add to that? I want to. You've been mentioning about community, and we're talking about talk planning, and then you talk about technology. So this will get solved through what? Through community, or through planning, or will it be through technology?
One is community, clearly, because what Tushar said was one part of it, that everyone wants the cargo to come at 5 o'clock. Everyone wants trucks in the month end between 25th and 30th. So if you are putting all your pressure on the last 5 days, then what will happen is that you will not get. And second is, then you start to threaten your service provider. If you don't give us the vehicle on a given time, we're going to blacklist you. So it can't be a win-lose situation. People need to understand that it has to be a win-win situation. It has to be a collaborative approach. And then you divide your loads on week 1, how much, week 2, and there you can do forecasting. When there is technology, you have historical data, you have seasonal data when Diwali is going to come. Sitting here, I can tell November 10th is Diwali this year. You don't need rocket science really to solve this problem. I think it's more a mindset, willingness to collaborate. If you don't trust your partners, then you're not going to find solutions. The ladies in the Delhi kitty party have better trust than the supply chain people sometimes. They don't have any SOP in terms of who has to give money or whatever it is. But they decide to come together to make themselves happy. So even in the cold chain, if people decide to solve it, I think there are people who are willing, like Tushar is among them, and that should be the attitude, that together we can make it happen.
Perfect. I have another question from Stanley at Bharat Serums, who wants to know, when do we expect bigger infrastructure and cold chain facilities to cater to the higher volumes? So what are your predictions on that?
I will take that, and my answer to the same. The industry has to gather, and as India, as country, because if we plan supply chain well, you will save money instead of coming in the end of the month. Just to give you India-US Joint Business Council, where I was sitting, in 120 minutes, 1,000 times supply chain was discussed. And that was vis-a-vis India is concerned. So if we plan our production well, your costs will go down. And today capacities are available to uplift cargo even 100 kilo. And, Rashmi will be able to deliver 100 kilo on the other side. Why you want to wait till 3,000 kilo? So I think we, as a nation, we have to understand to change the supply chain as how to do it.
Perfect. Moving on, I have another question, which is from Ayush saying, how do you compare Indian airports versus Middle Eastern airports?
So if I have to answer that, like I said in the starting of the conference, Indian airports are historically were there for many years. Middle East started much later. Middle East had created very good infrastructure in terms of the airport. There's no doubt about it. And they've really invested, whether it is in Doha or whether it's in Dubai or whether it's DWC or whether it is now even Etihad Airport. But there is no reason that Indian airports should feel bad, because Indian airports have done well in many ways, that within the constraints they have upgraded their airports. No one can come to a Delhi airport today and complain, or a Bombay airport and complain really, because and it's not right to compare the situations also. Our population is probably high in density and our constraint. Also keep one important aspect is that for whole of the country, whether it is in Thailand or it's Bangkok as one single large airport, India has multiple airports split across multiple states. So each airport has its own way of functioning. So it's India is no way behind.
Mr. Satish, just a continuation to that, I also got a question about pharma zones that you spoke about earlier in the beginning. And Smriti wants to know which are the new airports in India that you think these pharma zones will come up in?
Very good question. The first one that will come up is Goa, because MOPA is very clearly on the agenda in terms of creating it. Whenever GMR builds Visakhapatnam port, it will get a pharma zone because Vizag is an airport which has access to large pharma manufacturing, and pharma zones will come up where there is manufacturing close by. So these two should be clearly one. If at all, if Chandigarh comes up, then there is an option there. But two are big ones. Otherwise, everyone else has a pharma zone today.
Perfect. I have another question from. Sorry, Mr. Jani, please.
I wanted the earlier on the airport wise. I would leave with that question with Rashmi. She goes and audit every airport around the world, so she should be able to tell us where we stand as an Indian airport when she goes and audit around the world.
I agree with that. I was saying, Rashmi, what do you have to say when you went to the next question? Rashmi, yeah, coming back to that. Thank you, Mr. Jani.
So yeah. We, I mean, not just do we visit all the airports in the interests of our own business as well as our customers, and don't forget airlines like us. I mean, we have a significant network. We operate to over 200, 250 maybe even destinations. So there is a lot of interest in that. We have visibility to the infrastructure, and we've also adopted technology. Even if we can't physically go and visit, it's impossible sometimes to cover the scale of the network. We even have platforms that we have partnered with, engaged with, where we can get ground handlers to give us all the data, extended data in terms of the infrastructure, the handling, the ramp handling, everything, every kind of equipment that they have. So we have a lot of data on hand of what's happening at all the airports, and we evaluate that. We share that with customers transparently so that they can also make the right decisions on where they want to transport shipments. And of course, we continue to upgrade our own infrastructure because, touching back about the Middle East, a question previously is because Middle East, we are mostly designed for transit cargo. Unlike India, there's a lot of originating cargo, export. And then there are a lot of Europe, US is more geared up for export as well as import. The Middle East, we have relatively small populations. We have lesser manufacturing, so we don't export as much. We import little. So most of our airports are designed for transfer as hubs, the throughput of things coming in and going out. But if Satish, Tushar Bhai, all of us, we are part of communities and platforms where we can offer customers a lot of visibility in terms of what is available at different airports to make the right distribution, decisions.
Rashmi, sorry, is this for customers which you deal with, or this is for people at large, the industry at large? We can share this information.
Okay, so here I speak more specific to us, right? Because, of course, there are other airlines also who participate similarly. There is extended or very, very detailed information that we can share with customers that work with us naturally. Because, we want to protect the data. There's data protection also involved in that. But for the industry at large as well, we make, more and more we see that not just airlines, but even ground handling and all that. On our website, we make a certain level of data available for customers to go and able to access. But then if they want more, there is access to more via platforms.
Okay, thank you. Nitika, can we take the last question because we're really out of time?
I have two more questions, please. Just give me two more questions. The next question is from Rishi and Masood. They've asked similar questions. I'm going to take them both together. When do you see standardization of containers to be achieved in India, where material can be easily moved across all means of transport and storage? And Masood has also asked something similar, saying, when will we see the benefits of the unbroken cold chain? How is this going to get solved in the future?
So if you want me to take it, let's understand why standardization in India will take some time. It can't happen immediately, because if you want to standardize to 20 and a 40 feet and a 40 feet high cube for the transportation and palletization to US and Europe standards, it would be brilliant in terms of how we function. But the criticality is today when you look at places like Mahipalpur in New Delhi, you can't get a 40-feet trailer and do an offloading there. You have the challenge of entries and no entries in this country into some of the warehousing areas and the rest of them. Not everyone is happy to bring everything in palletized mode, because certain cargoes can't be palletized because of the aircraft configurations as well, which Rashmi knows. If it's a narrow body aircraft for transshipment, a 737 or A320, then it's a bulk load. So their standardization again is a difficulty. But the airlines in per se have their standardized ULDs, which are very clearly there in place. It's just that the cargo coming from the place of manufacturing into the terminals will need more collaborative approach. Standardization cannot be done by one particular agency. It's an activity that involves multiple agencies, and that is something which will help if it happens. But it won't happen immediately, clearly, because of multiple, and multimodal transportation will become very effective if standardization comes. Clearly, because then you can offload it in the same way, you can have same size of forklifts across, and that is something where we are seeing that not everyone is ready to invest in material handling equipment also.
My next question is from Mr. Krishna Dutt, who wants to know that we've been discussing technology and efficiency for 3-4 years now since the pandemic, but how much on-ground changes have you seen?
I will take that. We have now ramped up use of technology. The whole our terminal is now completely mapped with the temperature control, every corner. So you see this, our Turant app is not only giving what is status of a cargo, but gives them what temperature it is stored. And I think so now you will see in next few months, there will be carrier. We will give temperature to you while the cargo on the aircraft.
Wow.
And we will also ramping up our ramp site, which is a black hole. So we are now trying to working out a solution where we can give information what has happened on the ramp through the scanners and all. Of course, there are issues of security to reach to the tarmac, which we are trying to resolve with the security agencies. But you will see that broken chain, which is a black hole for everybody. India probably will take the lead there.
Perfect. Thank you. I have one last question, which maybe you can all talk about in your closing remarks, saying, how do you observe the coal supply chain in the coming 6 to 8 months, given the global situation of jet fuel, war, economic crisis? So what do you think, where does the future, short-term future lay?
Can I take that first?
Yes, please, sir.
I think there is a big opportunity which is going to come to supply to Russia, which has not even started. Russia has lot of rupee with them, which they are not able to utilize. The big pharma movement into Russia will come up in the next 6 to 8 months. And I don't think we are ready, if you ask me personally. That's number one. Number two, in terms of the cold chain, there will be investment will come, provided we as a community approach and we take this as part of a discipline approach to the whole thing. And as I said, lot of side effect will come on domestic. Today, the domestic same drug, which needs 15 to 25, goes in 45-degree temperature in domestic. That cannot be too standard. So that will be a great opportunity which will come. So automatically the whole ecosystem will change. And India will first to prove with that kind of mass. Don't forget, we are the largest populated country in the world now.
Wonderful.
So
yeah, please.
Let me add one quick point, is that someone asked about how the cold chain will be. Just to tell them that the unbroken cold chain is only going to improve, because in the more than the active, on the passive side, there are solutions which are coming up with temperature maintenance without any difficulty up to even 10 days. From a current now of 110 hours to 115 hours, there are going to be a situation where between 9 to 10 days you will be able to store cargo without any intervention. And if those type of technologies come and those can be used, then even whether there is war or whether there's a transshipment delays, then the cold chain is going to remain unbroken.
Perfect. Thank you.
And, I'll just add to top up what Tushar Bhai and Satish said. Nothing new. So again, 6 to 8 months is relatively short term. But what is changing and is that, I mean, since the pandemic, of course, it's been a year since, but then we see that more and more airlines are bringing capacity back into the air. Which was highly restricted over the last 3 or 4 years. People are, had aircraft parked, so the networks are growing. Many, including ourselves, we're including the number of, schedule, frequency, destinations that, that we had to curtail over the last few years. So you'll see that over the summer schedules, a lot of that changes as passengers get back into the air as much, which also helps cargo. The second thing is that we've seen China gradually opening up. It was pretty much closed in terms of, I would say, cargo as well as passengers. So China's opening up. A lot of carriers are putting capacity back into China specifically. So that's going to change the dynamics a little more. Open up new markets, or should I say old markets which were restricted. And the last, Satish's point, is solutions. More and more solutions are coming in the market, available to customers. So people will expand the products and the solutions according to trade lanes, according to different temperature ranges. So that's going to be interesting.
Perfect. Thank you. Back to Mr. SanJeet.
Really, I'm comments with you. Port has.
Mr. SanJeet, we're losing your audio. Can you just please reconnect once? We're losing your audio. In the meanwhile, maybe I can just add in one more question, Rashmi. Especially to you. Can you highlight a little bit more about the medical devices market? Because I know that's something we had initially spoken about, but maybe leave our audience with some last minute thoughts on that. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. So medical devices, I mean, they've always been there, but I think a lot more attention came into that during the pandemic. And the medical device industry as such, I mean, I think it's a vast scope. We are not just talking about PPE, we're talking about, surgical medical devices, we're talking about drug delivery devices, we're talking about laboratory equipment, diagnostic equipment, hospital equipment, everything today. I mean, if you look at the scope, it's phenomenal. And I don't think a lot of attention has been paid to it. But last year, the first, as usual, always, the EU GDP has rolled out a regulation, or rather a revised regulation pertaining to medical devices, which will extend over the next few years, encompassing a large part of the medical device manufacturers, because a lot of focus has been on healthcare pharmaceutical manufacturing, right? Drugs, medicines, vaccines, all of that. But not enough governance and oversight has been there on medical devices, manufacturing and distribution. Those will come under regulatory oversight over the next few years. And that will raise the industry bar. It will raise the need for certifications, raise the need for medical devices as well as distribution companies to scale up. And India will again be on the forefront. Of course, we import a lot of high-tech medical devices, but we also have the capability to manufacture and export. A lot of countries will gear up for that. I think it's the next big thing coming. I mean, of course, we'll continue to do medicines and vaccines, but I think we need to start looking into that seriously, looking into that market, because in the next 1 or 2 decades, that's going to develop extensively.
Wonderful. I think we have Mr. SanJeet back.
Yeah, Mr. Jani, I wanted to really ask you is, what has the support the industry has been receiving from the government? That's a very important aspect. So I really would like you to throw some light on that, because we are not going to function on a...
SanJeet, since last 20 years, I've stopped depending on the government. If you have to do something, you have to do our own. And I think so, government has been good enabler. We need to change some processes, what we do at the airport. That's the best part. And I think so, government is helping wherever you need a help. So I would leave it that rather than, asking government any more than what they're doing right now.
So the expectation to any government.
I think we're losing Mr. SanJeet's voice again. Mr. Lakkaraju, would you like to add some closing remarks on your expectations from the government?
I think what we all need to understand, like what Tushar said, is certain things that the government can do, lot can be done by the private sectors themselves. If you keep waiting for government to do everything, it will be very difficult. The government can address the policy part of it and the larger framework part of it. But the rest of the things have to be done by private players, because each one has its role, like training as an area where government can support clearly, because you don't have a single logistics university which really has been built exclusively from the time we've got independence. And that's an area where I would presume that the IITs and the IIMs should really make an opportunity to create supply chain as a full-time subject and sort of it. These are clearly an areas where government intervention can help. That doesn't need additionally huge money.
But Satish, sorry, if you can hear me, I want to ask you, you talked about standardization. Do you want BIS and QCI to come in? QCI means Quality Council of India, and BIS, what I mean is the Bureau of Indian Standards. Do you want the government to come up with that to help you in all that in any way, or you want to keep them out?
No. We are fine. We've always said that legislations and authorities are required in the logistics industry. We are not saying that, because today your entry barriers into supply chain are you can take a laptop and start functioning without owning anything, and that is not a good thing for pharma industry. Pharma industry needs definitely where even the supply chain players go through some bit of standardization in terms of all these norms, and how well it is more regulated in terms of handling is better, because then you are addressing larger problems also of counterfeit drugs. You are addressing larger problems of theft, which is a favorite subject that I and Rashmi keep discussing in every conference. Even if billions of dollars is lost in counterfeit medicine, nothing is happening drastically.
Okay. Thank you very much. In fact, we're really much over time, over 20 minutes, but thank you, all of you, very, very much. I think I really would like to say, Rashmi ji, thank you very, very much. That was very nice and great insight into things. And Satish ji, a lot. I think there's more to discuss with you in the future also. And Tushar ji, thanks a lot. You're the pioneer in this, and thanks for this new initiative which you have taken. I think this is going to go far and wide. That's what I really think about. And one thing to all my listeners who are still around, India is the biggest country in the world, even now with population. Yes, we are. I don't think we have any choices anymore. It's time that we have to improve, and we have to.
So I think we lost Mr. SanJeet again. I think his name is frozen again. With this, I think we've come to an end to the digital conclave today. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to our lovely audience who've been absolutely wonderful. They've asked such relevant questions and they've enjoyed our discussion today. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much for taking up the time and sharing this knowledge with the audience. I'm sure this will go on a long way, helping them plan in the future. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much.
And we will meet the audience next month again.
Yes, we will have this every month. Friends, we will be back next month with another very insightful discussion. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.